We are back into the action here, folks, from the break on a Monday. Hottest show on the streets, number one forum for Crimson2go football. News, notes, and information in my own words with yours truly, Stephen Smith of Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Got the man John Ivory in the production studio trying to fight for college football. I mean, players in the SEC, ACC, Big 12, all fighting to have a season. Big 10 has canceled the season. Pac-12 may not be too far behind. And you look at, why is college football, or why college football is so important to these young athletes. And so first and foremost, we're going to look at Coach Saban. Alabama head football coach Saban made a statement today on ESPN. Of course, we all saw it about how he understands the situation that we're in as a country, but he wants to play for these players. He wants to play for these players. He wants to play with these players, especially when you discuss the hard work and the effort these young men have put in. He touched on how, the players are going to feel more safer and are going to be more safer on the campus and in these facilities, versus going out and about and at home and in different, grocery stores and other areas. Coach Saban feels like the players are going to be way more accounted for in terms of being on the campus here at the University of Alabama. I've even had the idea, or stated the idea, of having, bubble delegated areas on the campus, whether it's the Malmore Complex or the Sports Science Center or even, Bryant Hall, just having different areas where you can keep players there, test players there, quarantine players there, making sure that you got a head count of every single individual. But before we get into the dangers of not having a college football season, I'm going to say this. I identify with a lot of these players myself. And the reason why I identify with a lot of these players myself is not all of them come from these areas, but a few of these athletes come from the ghetto of ghettos. They come from the project of projects. As the young people say nowadays, they get it out the mud. Some of these players come from underneath the mud. That's the environment they hail from. They hail from underneath the mud. And for me, I grew up in Perry County. I grew up in Marion, Alabama. Perry County is the second poorest county in the state of Alabama. No joke. Look it up. No joke. Second poorest county in the state of Alabama. So Perry County, being from Marion, there's no industry there. No Walmart, no skating ring, no McDonald's, no type of industry in Marion, Alabama. None. We maybe have 1 to 2 grocery stores, one good one at best. And for a lot of the youth that graduate from the high school, they immediately leave the city because in their mind, heck, I ain't going back there. Because if I go back to Marion, I'm looking at 2 things. I look at I go to a life of crime. I'm in drugs, selling them, doing them, dealing them, or I'm breaking into houses, breaking into buildings, breaking in, stealing stuff, or I fall back into the background of the city, which that means you're just coasting. You're going day to day with no type of ambition, no type of get up and go, no type of drive, no type of intensity, no type of umph, no type of understanding what you want to do in life. And you got quite a few athletes that are from those backgrounds, and they know if I get sent back home, I know what's waiting for me. College football saves me from a lot of this stuff. And when you look at Nick Saban, he has kept a lot of players from falling through the cracks. You look at Scooby Carter, helped position him, to JUCO. I mean, think about it. Scooby Carter is probably from the rough side of Texas. Think about last year. If this sort of thing happened last year and Scooby Carter couldn't have played football last year, what would have happened to Scooby Carter? Think about a lot of these young athletes at Alabama where, if this would have happened last year and it couldn't have played football last year, the types of things that they would have probably ended up succumbing to. Now, I believe these athletes are strong young men. They're strong people. They're strong individuals of society. But when that peer pressure hits, it's a different story. It's a different story. Believe you me, I know. I've grown up with people in my hometown that strong people, strong individuals had their own mindset, but for some reason, some way, somehow, failed to peer pressure, and the trajectory that they were supposed to go to in life, they did not meet that because of the peer pressure, because of undesirable situations, undesirable circumstances that happened. Why? They came back home to a place where they knew, if I come back here, there is no hope, there is no opportunity, there is no shot for me. For Alabama fans out there, we all remember Rolando McClain. Rolando McClain at Alabama, the guy was a beast. The guy was a monster. The guy was an animal. The guy had a photographic memory. Nick Saban could put a formation on the board, have a new play drawn up. It would take other linebackers years to get the play down. Rolando McClain, check my drip, coach. Bang, got it. But when Rolando McClain would go home to Decatur, Alabama, that's where his troubles would always ensue. If he stayed on campus, if he stayed focused with the program, if he just, distanced himself from home, it could have been a completely different story. But going back to that type of environment, it always got him. It always hurt him every single time. So when you look at just the dangers these athletes face if they are forced to be sent home and not have a season, first and foremost, they go back to places where there is very little to no health care. On the campuses, these schools, these programs, they have health care. And not just any old health care, they got the best health care. So being there on those campuses, they're getting around-the-clock checkups, around-the-clock treatments, around-the-clock appointments, around-the-clock, visits where these team doctors are testing them, making sure they're okay. I mean, you even got Dr. Matt Ray, the director of performance science here at Alabama. He's frustrated by all the COVID paranoia. He has spoken out and said, can you just trust us? Can you just trust the team doctors? We're getting paid to make sure these young men stay okay. We're getting paid to make sure we test these young men. We're getting paid to make sure we track the totality of this individual. So they go home, you run the risk of going back to an environment where, very little health care when you talk about mom and dad or whomever the guardian is, for these athletes. So very little to no health care. But number two thing that you risk right here, if the athletes were to be, sent back home, is once again, if they're sent back home, they run that risk of contracting COVID and passing it on to other family members, other friends, other people. Why? Once again, it goes back to the very little to no health care in that environment versus that the programs that they're in have the health care, have the means to make sure that the players are being attended to. The third thing, and this is a big one here, if players were to miss this whole season, it's going to be very, very hard for their stock in terms of the NFL draft to be taken seriously. At the end of the day, these athletes, they want to go pro. They want to go pro. The reason why they picked up that football in the first place at 3, 4, 5 years old in the backyard with pops, in the backyard with uncle, in the backyard with big cousin, in the backyard with coaches, the reason why these young men picked up a football, they had dreams, goals, ambitions, thoughts of, hey, if I'm good, and Lord behold, if I'm darn good at this, I get a chance to play Division I football. I get a chance to one day go play in the NFL and change the whole paradigm and change the whole dynamic and change the whole perception of my family. I can tell my folks, you see the hood right there? Turn away from it, folks. I got the bank for us. I got the bank for us. And now we can transition out of this hole we in, and I can put y'all in a better situation. If these players miss a full year, these NFL scouts, these NFL analysts, they become very, very skeptic. These NFL teams, these coaches, these GMs, these owners, they become very skeptic because now they're going, wait a minute, they missed a whole year. How good are they really? Are they as good as what they were when they were playing? Have they lost the step? Have they lost the burst? Have they lost the technique? Have they lost the discipline? You now put the owners, GMs, and coaches in a bind because they don't know what the heck type of player they're getting because the player missed the whole season. And you're not the same player if you miss a whole season versus what you were when you played. You're not the same guy. So number 3, you run that risk. And then last but not least, number 4. Fourth thing you kind of risk here is if these students return back home, if these athletes return back home, and I mentioned this before, you go to that life of crime, you go to that life of, and you know what's going on in those cities. These athletes know what's going on in those environments. They know what's going on. So that's why you have guys like Kylan Hill at Mississippi State that's scared to go back home because he knows I go back home to Mississippi, I'm getting killed. People getting killed. People getting hurt. People getting damaged. People, not doing the things that they need to do. So you're risking a whole bunch of things here, sending these athletes home. Last thing I'm gonna mention here before we go to break is where we are as a country. There is a lot of fear, chaos, confusion, frustration, negativity. We need sports now more than ever because in sports, we're getting taught love, teamwork, togetherness, toughness, appreciation. Sports is dire. And we need that now more than ever because of where we are right now as a society. But upon our return from the break, we get into more of your phone calls, your thoughts, your tweets, your questions, your concerns after this.
T-Town Menswear in the University Mall in Tuscaloosa. Touchdown Alabama Magazine is Alabama football's premier publication. A subscription to Touchdown Alabama Magazine is the perfect gift for any Alabama fan. For exclusive news and information, recruiting updates, a free annual print magazine, and more, go to touchdownalabama.com and click join. Only $5.95 per month or pay $49.95 for a full year subscription. That's a saving of almost $22. Go to touchdownalabama.com today and roll Tide.
Thank you for watching Touchdown Alabama Magazine's YouTube channel. To continue to get the best in Alabama football content, subscribe here and turn on your notifications to stay connected with the hottest shows covering your Crimson Tide.